Good morning, brothers and sisters. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Pastor Mike is in Africa for the next 3 weeks. May God bless him and Tara and Roberto and the entire team. They are taking God's message to a dark place. Liberia, the second poorest country in the whole world. Poverty-stricken, diseased, and oppressed. A place where they truly need God. Please pray for the pastor and the whole team for their health and safety for these few weeks. May God use them mightily to change lives for the better. It is a privilege and an honor for me to be able to bring the message to you today, my friends and neighbors. I will do my best to help my brother Mike while he is away by serving here, keeping him in prayer constantly, doing my best to serve you. Today I would like to talk about redemption. What does it mean to be redeemed? Coupons get redeemed, right?
Yep.
So I looked up redemption in the Practical Bible Dictionary. It says to redeem is to buy back. Slaves could be redeemed and their freedom bought back. But what does it mean to be redeemed by Jesus? In the New Testament it says to be rescued from sin and its consequences, to be ransomed. Matthew 20:28. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus gave his life as a ransom to free us, slaves to sin, from its consequences. We all know what those consequences are. For the wages of sin is death. Not the death of the body, but the death of the soul. Eternal consequences. All people are born with a sinful nature that holds them in slavery. This leads to all kinds of rule breaking. God sent Jesus to defeat the power of sin and remove the punishment. He sent Jesus to redeem us. Jesus bought us back with his very life. Throughout the Bible, we find so many stories of redemption. I'd like to share a few of them with you. Like a casual history lesson, but there will be no test at the end.
Thank you.
It started with Adam, the first man to disobey God. God placed Adam in paradise. He gave him everything, including a soulmate to share his life with him. And what does Adam do? The one thing that God tells him not to do. Only one thing he wasn't allowed to do, and that's the one thing that he did. Did God leave him or forsake him because of it? It's like telling your children it's time for them to move out on their own. Do you forget about them? Of course not. The Bible tells us that God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife, and that he dressed them himself. He didn't toss the garments at their feet and tell them to take these on your way out. He dressed them himself. Did you know that this is the first time that innocent blood is shed for someone else's transgressions? God killed those animals to provide the skins for Adam and Eve, the very first sacrifice. God banned Adam from the garden and sentenced him to a life of hard labor and toil. But he let Adam live. He blessed him with many children. Adam lived to be 930 years old. I believe God redeemed his first creation, the first man made in his image. Next was Noah. The Bible says Noah was a righteous man. God chose to use Noah when he was 500 years old. Chosen by God to keep the human race running. God deemed that evil man should be destroyed, except for Noah and his family. They led lives that pleased God. God asked Noah to build a boat in the middle of the desert. It took many years of hard labor and toil, years of faith in a hot and dusty land, years of scorn and laughter from the locals. But Noah obeyed God wholeheartedly. He never wavered. Did God redeem Noah? Not from a life of sin, but he brought him back after choosing to eliminate mankind. Genesis 8:1 says, "But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock that were with him in the ark. And he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded." In reality, we are all descendants of Noah and his family, for they repopulated the earth. And what does Noah eventually do? After he is saved from the flood, he gets drunk and lays naked in front of his children. Then when he sobers up, he is so irate, he curses his youngest son. I don't mean he swears at him. He cursed him with a curse that he would be beneath his brothers for the rest of his life, to be the lowest of their slaves. Then we move on to Abram. Genesis 12:1. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land that I will show you." So Abram went. He left Ur, which was a prosperous city with security and a high standard of living. He set out with Sarai, his childless wife, and his nephew Lot. They were camping in tents. As he travels, God speaks to him again. Abram, this land is going to be a heritage to your descendants. You will possess all of this. His journey continues, and hunger drives him to Egypt. There was a severe famine. And the Bible says that Sarai, his wife, was beautiful. So when they get to Egypt, Abram tells Sarai, when the Egyptians see what a beautiful woman you are, they're going to kill me and let you live. Say that you are my sister, that they will treat me well and spare my life because of you. So the Egyptians take her to Pharaoh, and he is smitten with her. He treats Abram well for her sake. Abram acquires sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, manservants and maidservants, and camels. Abram was supposed to be on a mission from God. Go where I lead you, do what I tell you. But his fear and his insecurity drives him to his own pretenses, which puts God's entire plan at risk. What do you think God does? Genesis 12:17. The Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife. Not scurvy or the croup, serious diseases. Pharaoh summoned Abram and said, "What have you done to me? Why did you say this was your sister, so that I should take her for my wife? Take your wife and go." Abram and Lot decide to part company, with Lot going on to Sodom. There is a battle, and Lot gets carried off. Abram gathers 318 men and goes after them. They rescue Lot and the women of Sodom and the other people that had been taken. After this, Abram has a vision from God. Look at the stars, God tells him. I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars. And how can that be when Sarai, his wife, is childless? Sarai had an Egyptian maid named Hagar. She told Abram to sleep with her maid so that she could build a family through her. So he did, and the maid became pregnant. Sarai was extremely jealous, and she mistreated Hagar to the point that she fled into the desert. God sent an angel to her in the desert. He told her to go back to Sarai. She went back and bare Abram his first child, Ishmael. When Abram was 99 years old, God came to him and changed his name to Abraham. I will make you a father of many nations, and kings will come from you. God also changed Sarai's name to Sarah and blessed her with a son, Isaac. About this time, God decides that he needs to destroy Sodom, where Lot lives, and Gomorrah, because they are such evil and wicked places. Abraham pleads with God to spare them if he can find 50 righteous people there. But he cannot. He pleads even more. 40 righteous, 30 righteous, 20, even 10 righteous, so that God won't destroy it. The last but no, he cannot find even 10 righteous. So God spared Lot and his daughters, but his wife, she looked back and became the salt of the earth. By now, God had saved Abraham from Egypt. He had blessed him with Ishmael and Isaac, promised him great things, and spared his nephew Lot. So what do we think Abraham does next? He moves to a place called Gerar, and he tells everyone there that Sarah is his sister. The king of Gerar, his name is Abimelech, comes, and he takes Sarah to be his wife. God comes to Abimelech in a dream and says to him, you are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman. If you do not return her, you can be sure that you and all yours will die. Then the king Abimelech summons Abraham and says, why have you done this to us? Sounds familiar, right? The Lord had closed up every womb in Abimelech's household because of Sarah. Of course, God did redeem Abraham and make him the father of the Jewish people. Father Abraham. God also sent him to sacrifice his son, Isaac, to prove his faith. A supreme test, and he passed. And God spared Isaac, and Isaac grew and had a wife of his own, Rebekah. But because of the famine, Isaac has to go to Gerar. He meets the king there, and guess what? He tells everyone there that Rebekah is his sister. Like father, like son. Isaac and Rebekah have two sons, Esau and Jacob. When Isaac is on his deathbed, his eyes are so weak that he can no longer see. Rebekah and Jacob, who is her favorite son, conspire to dupe the old man and steal Esau's blessing and his birthright. As the firstborn, Esau would succeed Isaac as head of the household and would inherit a double share of the estate. Esau is so angry by this deception, he plans to kill his brother. Rebekah convinces Jacob to run away to her brother Laban is. Jacob is in exile for 20 years. These years hold little joy for Jacob, who meets a crooked dealer after his own heart in his uncle Laban. Well, Jacob was in love with Laban's daughter Rachel, and he agreed to work for Laban 7 years so that he could have Rachel as his wife. After 7 years, it's time for the wedding. They get to the altar, Jacob raises his bride's veil, and it's Leah, Rachel's sister. Laban duped Jacob. So he agrees to let Jacob marry Rachel after 7 more years of labor. Now Jacob has 2 wives. And when the Lord sees that his wife Leah was not loved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah gave Jacob 6 sons and a daughter. And then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. And she bare a son named Joseph. Jacob grew exceedingly prosperous. He owned large flocks and had many possessions. Although he didn't get along with his uncle Laban, so he decided he was going to leave. He gathered up his things, and he gathered up Laban's things. Rachel stole her father's household goods, and they left like thieves, while Laban was out shearing his sheep. The Bible says, moreover, that Jacob deceived Laban by not telling him that he was running away. 3 days later, Laban finds Jacob in the desert. He comes and he searches for his things in all of their tents. Rachel had taken all of her father's goods and put them in her camel's saddle. She told her father, I cannot stand up because I'm having my period. Stealing and lying from her own father. Later, God gets Jacob alone, and they wrestle all night long. God displaces Jacob's hip. Jacob's lifetime struggle against God ended that night. But at the end of it, Jacob is crippled. But he is a new man. God gives him a new name, Israel, which means you have struggled with God and man and you have overcome. And God blessed him there in the desert, redeemed. Israel had many sons, but Jacob was his favorite. But Joseph was his favorite. He made him a coat of many colors. When his brothers saw that their father loved Joseph more than any of them, they hated him. Joseph had a dream that his brothers would bow down to him. When he told them, they hated him all the more. When his brothers took their father's flocks and they went out to graze, they plotted to kill Joseph, their younger brother. They said to each other, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a wild animal came and destroyed him. And then we'll see what comes of his dreams. They stripped him of his many-colored coat and they threw him in the cistern. Then they saw a caravan coming, and they decided, why should we kill him and gain nothing? Let's sell him as a slave. So they pulled him up out of the cistern, and they sell him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites. We took him to Egypt. His brothers took his coat, they dipped it in a goat's blood that they had slaughtered, and they took it back to their father. He was devastated. He refused to be comforted. In mourning, he said, I will go down to the grave to see my son. Genesis 39 and 2. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. Unfortunately for Joseph, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with him. He refused. She lies to her husband that Joseph tried to sleep with her, and he was thrown into prison. But while Joseph was there in the prison, Genesis 39:21 says, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness, and he granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. When 2 full years had passed, the Pharaoh started having dreams. His mind was troubled, so he sent for all his magicians and wise men of Egypt, but none of them could interpret those dreams. One of Pharaoh's servants had been in prison with Joseph and told him that Joseph could give him answers. So Joseph was taken out of the prison and taken to the Pharaoh. Joseph said, I cannot interpret your dreams, but my God can. He will give you the answers you desire. Through Joseph, God interpreted Pharaoh's dreams and declares that there will be 7 years of prosperity, followed by 7 years of famine. Joseph gives them a great plan to hold food in reserve to be used during the 7 years of famine, so that the country may not be ruined. This plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace and all of my people. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. Wow. From being thrown in the sewer, to being a slave, to being in prison, to being second in command in all of Egypt. But wait, it gets better. Then the famine comes. The land of Canaan is also affected by the famine. Who comes to Egypt to buy grain? Joseph's brothers, the ones that had thrown him in the sewer. He recognized them, but they did not recognize him. He treats them harshly, and he accuses them of being spies. He put them in custody for 3 days. He lets all one of them leave except one, to take the food back to his family. Eventually the brothers come back and they are all reunited. Joseph makes himself known, and his father, Israel, comes to Egypt. His father lived in Egypt 17 years until he died. Genesis 50 and 15. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him?" So they sent word to Joseph saying, "Your father left these instructions before he died. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father." More lies, lying on their dead father. Genesis 50 and 20, Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." Joseph, redeemed. 300 years had passed since the death of Joseph. Jacob's people had been in Egypt for 370 years now. Although their privileged status is no longer with them, they are gone. They are slaves. They are a slave nation under a new Pharaoh, who has long forgotten Egypt's debt to Joseph. Things have changed in Egypt. Ramesses is the Pharaoh, and he is in charge now. He is not happy that there are so many Jews. He starts to see that as a threat. No matter how hard they are worked, the population explosion continues. Ramesses makes a decree that all Hebrew boy babies are to be cast into the Nile. When Moses was born, his mother hid him for 3 months. When she could no longer hide him, she placed him in a basket. Set him afloat on the Nile. Pharaoh's daughter went to the Nile to bathe. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it for her. Moses was raised by Pharaoh's daughter as her only son. He was raised as an Egyptian prince. When Moses was grown, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. Glancing this way and that, and seeing that no one was around, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. It became known what Moses did, and when Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses. Moses fled Egypt and went to Midian. Moses sat down by a well where the 7 daughters of Jethro came to draw water for their flocks. Some shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses came to their rescue. Moses agreed to stay and work for Jethro, who gave him his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites, and he was concerned about them. Moses was tending his father-in-law's flock by Horeb, the mountain of God. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a burning bush. "Moses, Moses," God said. "Here I am," replied Moses. The Lord said, "I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries, and I am concerned about their suffering. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." However, Moses is most reluctant. He raises one objection after another to God, and each time God counters. "I'm not up to the job, God. I will be with you," God says. "How am I to explain to people who you are? Tell them I am the God of their ancestors, the God of the present. I am." Moses says, "I am no speaker." God says, "I have created you. I will enable you to speak." Moses says, "Please send someone else, God." God said, "This I will not do.